Hey everybody, so today we're going to be looking at Canada is facing a terrible food crisis, says Maple Leaf CEO McCain. We're going to be looking at an article from the Globe and Mail, and we're going to take a look at that now. So again, I haven't read through any of these and I haven't looked through them. I just saw the headlines and I thought that these would be important to go over because food crisis seems like a bad thing. So, let's just go ahead and read through this. Terrible tragedy is unfolding across Canada where 5.8 million people are living in food insecurity, says Maple Leaf Foods. They do not have adequate access to food due to financial constraints, and the total has increased steadily over the past 15 years. The figure drops slightly at the start of the COVID-19 outbreak with the rollout of government pandemic benefits, but is again on the rise according to Stats Canada. Okay, give people more money. It's not that hard. CERB was very effective in reducing poverty. It was very effective in reducing food insecurity and homelessness and housing insecurity. We need to bring that back as a permanent program. Valerie Tarasuk, a nutritional... I'm just going to zoom this a little bit. Hold on one sec. Valerie Tarasuk, a nutrition sciences professor who leads a food security research team at University of Toronto, estimates that about 16% of Canadians live in food insecure households. Among the food companies that have been vocal about the continuing crisis, the response has been to focus on supply and how to increase it. Other companies have responded by raising their donations to food banks and other charities. Yeah, so donations to food banks and charities are great, and I'm not saying don't do it, but that's not going to solve the problem. The other thing is if we're just focusing on supply, that's good, but these companies are not incentivized to increase supply. We've seen that with oil. That's why gas prices are so freaking high. There is capacity in the United States and in Canada right now for us to be producing more oil to relieve stresses on the economy due to high gas prices, but the companies will make less money because then the gas price would go down. I hope that Maple Leaf isn't doing the same thing with their products, but it would not surprise me in the least if they did, because they're a publicly traded company. They kind of have to. They have that shareholder responsibility to increase profits if they can. So as nice as it is for Mr. McCain here and Maple Leaf to come out and say that we're entering a food crisis, that's great, but you are also one of the biggest manufacturers of products in Canada, so you can fix that. But in an interview with the Globe and Mail, Mr. McCain, who announced earlier this month he will step down as Maple Leaf's chief executive next year, explained why those approaches are based on myths. Food insecurity is not about food. The fundamental drivers of food insecurity are not food. Canada has an ample supply of food. Okay. Instead, it is really about the systemic issues, Mr. McCain said. He pointed to multiple factors tied to food insecurity: income inequality, poverty, mental illness, access to skills, including financial nutritional skills, and racism. Based, Mr. McCain. Based. It's all of those systemic issues that are at the core of food insecurity, he said. 100%. Wow. Okay. In 2016, Mr. McCain stated that the Maple Leaf Center for Action on Food Security was started with a goal of reducing food insecurity by 50% by 2030. The center conducts research and provides funding to programs and charities aimed at reducing food insecurity. Last month, Maple Leaf Foods pledged an additional $10 million towards the center, bringing the company's contributions to the charity to $20 million. In addition, Mr. McCain has personally donated $5 million to the cause. Okay. I mean, I think I want to do a little bit more research into what Maple Leaf has done and see if there's any major issues there, but all of that sounds really good. Experts have long emphasized that food insecurity is a problem of access, not supply. They have frequently advocated for policy changes aimed at reducing inequality, such as policies include a universal basic income, based, increased social safety measures such as a child benefit and disability payments, based, and better labor conditions, based. Actually, yeah, Maple Leaf is like all unionized too. So maybe they're not a terrible company. I mean, they're a publicly traded company. They work for the profit motive. Of course they're a terrible company. But they at least know that they're a problem. Which is not something that most companies, especially like food producers, meat producers, rarely rarely have any of these kind of statements. So that is something that is hopeful. It gives us a little bit of hope that some of these people may be changing. Unfortunately, he's retiring, so who knows what's going to happen after that. But, you know, we'll have to look more into this here in a second. So Prof. Tarasuk at the University of Toronto echoed Mr. McCain on income as the root cause of the problem. Duh, if you don't have money, you can't afford food. She said organizations such as the Maple Leaf Center help bring attention to the cause. Given record high food inflation rates, she said that in future, people with already limited incomes will likely have to compromise the quality of their food even further. But she emphasized that it's still income that's causing food insecurity, not the inflation. Totally. For me, what food price inflation does do is shine a light on the inadequacy of some income support programs and the need for better attention to the adequacy and indexation. Of course, yeah. We need, like, if you live in Toronto, you need more money than if you live in Steinbach, Manitoba. It's just clear. Like, if you live in Montreal, you need more money than if you live in, I don't know, Red Deer. Like, yeah, your cost of living is significantly higher. So indexing and scaling disability and supports to locations is very, very, very important. The fact that our government really doesn't do that very often, it does it in some situations, but not very often, is one of the drivers of these issues, especially when we're talking about people that are working but can't afford basics like rent and food. Like, there are a lot of people who work full-time jobs, even multiple full-time jobs, and still have a hard time getting by. Prior to the pandemic, we knew that 2/3 of food insecure people were in the workforce. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so 2/3 of people that were food insecure were working in Canada. That tells you all you need to know. The fact that you can work a full-time job or multiple full-time jobs and still not be able to afford food is insane. Food and housing should be decommodified. They should be taken off of the general market and subsidized or put through a general claim system where basically if you go to the store, you pick up food for the week and that's what you get, but you don't have to pay for it, or you pay a little bit for it, or something. Like, I think you can make these programs so that food itself is decommodified, where it's seen as something, it's just a right. Everybody has access to food. Everybody has access to housing. Those are the two things that we really need to be focusing on, and coming up with programs that enable individuals to be able to survive. And in a large measure, I say businesses have to own that problem, of course. Mr. McCain told the Globe that the vast majority of Maple Leaf employees are paid a living wage, and we're proud of that as a starting point. Yeah. Maple Leaf employees are mostly unionized, and mostly, from what I know, because I think there's actually a plant in Blumenort here, they do pretty well. It's grueling work, but they get paid decently. Now, I'm sure, don't get me wrong, there are definitely problems, and there's probably definitely health and safety issues there, but, you know, for the vast majority of people, that's a good starting point, and that's a good place for people to be at. Living wage, decent rights, and the ability to actually afford to live. And a lot of people that do work for Maple Leaf that I know down here are doing pretty decently. Like, yeah, does the job generally suck? Yeah, but most jobs suck. But if you're at least getting paid decently to do it, then it's less shitty. Tarasuk said the chief executives have an even greater impact by focusing their ethics around employment conditions, wages, and benefits, and lobbying policymakers and other leaders in the business community to do the same. We need people to be food secure employers, and we need leadership from the business community on what it looks like to be a food secure employer. But according to McCain, while wages might be part of the solution, many solutions are needed, especially given the excruciatingly complex nature of the crisis. There are many dimensions to the problem, and there are many layers in the solution, he said. And we do feel like we have something to bring to the table, but only in the context of collaboration with other partners. Yeah, so I want to look up real quick. I just want to see if there's been any major Maple Leaf issues in the recent past, and if that's why they're kind of going all in on this. Let's just see. Maple Leaf Foods scandal. Always good to look up scandal. There were 2008 Canada listeriosis outbreak. Let's just go to the Wikipedia page. They generally have some decent stuff here. Okay. So McCain here went out on Twitter calling out Donald Trump and talking about the flight 752 after it was shot down in Iran from the company's Twitter account. And he's been noted as a role model for crisis management. Lauded by some for his immunity and criticized by others for supplanting shareholder primacy as reactive calls for a boycott of the company impacted stock prices. Okay, so he's just becoming the executive chair and handing over CEO. Okay. Tyee reported in 2021, antitrust enforcement branch had raided Maple Leaf Foods and taken company flies off site. Legal counsel claims privilege on all seized assets, which had made the files unavailable to investigators. The documents used to obtain warrants. Applying pricing strategies used for bread alleged to be illegal to meet prices. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking was going to happen. So it looks like while this guy does have his moments, and you know they've taken some role and responsibility in helping a little bit here. $20 million is not nothing, especially in Canada. That's that's still a decent amount of money. 2019 revenue was $3.9 billion. They actually didn't make any money there, though. That's actually kind of crazy. Huh. So they had $3.94 billion in revenue, but they lost $8 million. I'm wondering if that is. I just am curious if they have like. Okay. Huh. So I would say that for the most part, this is probably. I think that this kind of piece here is a little bit of a fluff piece, but I do think that it brings up important information, and I do think that there are some good takeaways here. But I do think that there's probably a little bit more we need to look into. I want to just see what are we looking at on our stock right now? Maple Leaf Foods. Let's go 1 year. I mean, they are a little bit down. They're up year over year though, so I mean, you know, that's $3.3 billion market cap. That's a pretty decent sized company. Do they pay dividends? That's the other question. They do pay dividends, 20 cents per share. Okay. So it's a dividend paying company, and they're doing relatively decently. They've had some downfalls. What happened here? 3-1. What happened on 3-1? Okay. Now we're getting a little bit further into this Maple Leaf saga. Hold on one second here. Maple Leaf Foods. What was this? This was March 1st. March or February, end of February. 2022. What happened in February 2022? Oh, they released their financial report. I see. $527 million EBITDA. Let's see. They have a 6.8% margin, which is not insane. Plant protein sales were down. Total company sales had a margin of 8.8% before debt, and so on and so forth. Plant protein had a total drop of 4.7 year over year. Yeah, I mean, I think that probably what's going on here is that they are trying to find margin expansion near the lower end of the 14 to 16% target by the end of 2022. So I think that it's important that we look into these kind of companies, and it's important that we look into these kinds of information, because if we don't know what's going on, if we don't know why these stories are being written, if we don't know why they're being propped up, we don't know what the incentive structure behind it is. So we need to actually see, okay, what are the financial incentives here? And it looks like in this situation, the financial incentives behind this article here is directly related to stock price. And it is good PR. Not gonna lie, there was a couple base takes in here, but I think that it's still a corporation. They're still trying to make as much money as they possibly can, and if they're willing to actually make a difference here, $20 million, that's not nothing. That is something. And Mr. McCain also did donate $5 million. How much is he worth? How much is this man worth? That's the question. Because is that $5 million of 50 billion, or is that $5 million of 1.1 billion USD? So $5 million is not a ton for him, but that's still, that's still something. Let's see how. Yeah, let's see here. 21 in 2021. Okay. So this dude's a billionaire. Of course he is. His family bought a controlling stake in Maple Leaf Foods in '95. His father co-founded McCain Foods with his brother Harrison in '56. January 2020, yeah, talked about Trump and his foreign policy. So, yeah, I mean, this dude is probably one of the better ones, quote unquote, but I don't think that that's really something that we're, he at least understands the problems and maybe is trying to avoid the guillotine. I don't know if it's going to save him, though. Hey, thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell if you want to catch my next live stream that this video came from. Until tomorrow, everybody, have a fantastic day, y'all.